let's do this. We are going to play some Outer Limits theme and read some Guy de Maupassant. That's right. Guy, my friend Guy, you know, we played hockey together up in Canada. Guy de Maupassant was quite a remarkable guy. And you might have remembered that I noted that Guy de Maupassant was coming around at the time when materialism was coming about and the psychiatric profession was growing. They called them alienists, like that Caleb Carr book. Well, curiously enough, there's actually a horror babble 1 hour presentation of 5 short stories by Guy de Maupassant. And in the very first short story, they mention alienism. So we were on to something.
Nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We can roll the image, make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur or sharpen it to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits.
All right. And yes, I have my Better Call Saul Goodman t-shirt on. And I haven't gotten to see all of that. I loved Breaking Bad. It was a wonderful show. And Better Call Saul was pretty cool at the start. I sort of lost track of it, so I'll have to go back and watch it if I can. All right. So let's head on over to fantastic fiction and see what's going on. And we'll check in with you in a little bit with Guy de Maupassant. As we mentioned, Guy de Maupassant, born in 1850, died in 1893, was a literary acolyte of Gustave Flaubert. Through Flaubert, de Maupassant befriended the Russian novelist Ivan Turgenev and Émile Zola, as well as many of the protagonists of the realistic school. And that matches the idea of approaching things from the psychological frame and looking at horror sometimes through the brutality of man. So we're going to read a couple things from him, and I might even play you the first of the horror babble stories that could be pretty good for you. I think you might enjoy. And I will recommend the Horror Babble channel on YouTube anytime. Just awesome. And we've got this. In 1880, he published his first masterpiece, Boule de Suif, which met with an instant and tremendous success. Flaubert characterized it as a masterpiece that will remain. With good cause, de Maupassant's tales, whether they're tales of war and brutality like Mademoiselle Fifi and Boule de Suif, or tales of the human heart like Yvette, speak to a window in the human soul that few can see and fewer still can speak to. So you can see his novels there and collections of his works. Amazing number of short stories. Horror, comedy, adventure. Check this out. Best short stories right here of Guy de Maupassant. Amazing stuff. And you can find it all online free, but I was able to get a very inexpensive library volume version, not from the library, but a library of his work. And this is one of the volumes right here. It's beautiful. Published in 1923. Wow. Over 100 years ago, right? So I showed this off when I was in Studio 2 before. Pretty neat. Awesome. And so what I'd like to do is read to you. We've got a lot of different options here, but I'm going to read to you one of them that I think might be a little bit different. Then we'll go over to the Horror Babble channel so you can get a sense of how he was starting to combine the modernist view of psychology into things. But I'm going to go with The Tomb on page 101, or as they would say in the Sunmakers on Doctor Who, 909, 909. If you got to know Doctor Who for that reference. All right, so let's talk Guy de Maupassant, and I'm going to put up my Guy de Maupassant t-shirt design, which of course is going to sell like hotcakes. Everybody's going to love it. So I know. Look at this. Look at this. I went to a lot of trouble. The Russians and I worked hard on that. Look at that, huh? How about that, huh? Pretty good. Get that on a t-shirt, huh? How about that? Put it on a hat, whatever. Good stuff. All right, let's rock it. Here we go. The Tomb. On the 17th of July, 1883, at 2:30 in the morning, the caretaker of Béziers Cemetery, who lived in a little house at the end of the burying ground, was awakened by the yelping of his dog, which was locked in the kitchen. He immediately went downstairs and saw that the animal was scenting something under the door and barking furiously, as though some tramp had been prowling about the house. Vincent, the caretaker, took up his gun and went out cautiously. His dog ran off in the direction of General Bonnet's Avenue and stopped short in front of Madame Thomasot's monument. The caretaker, advancing cautiously, soon noticed a dim light in the direction of the Malenvers Avenue. He slipped in amongst the tombstones and witnessed a most horrible deed of desecration. A young man had disinterred the corpse of a young woman, buried the day before, and he was dragging it out of the grave. A small, dark lantern placed on a pile of earth lit up barely a few feet of the hideous scene. Vincent, the caretaker, pounced upon the criminal, felled him to the ground, bound his hands, and took him to the police station. He was a young lawyer from the city, rich and well thought of. His name was Courbetel. He was tired. The public prosecutor recalled the monstrous deeds committed by Sergeant Bertrand and aroused the audience. The crowd was thrilled with indignation. As soon as the magistrate sat down, the cry arose, "Put him to death! Put him to death!" The president had great difficulty in restoring silence. Then he said in a serious tone of voice, "Accused, what have you to say in your defense?" Courbetel, who had refused counsel, arose. He was a handsome youth, large, dark, with an open countenance, strong features, and a fearless eye. The crowd began to hiss. He was not disconcerted, but commenced speaking with a slightly husky voice, a little low in the beginning, but gradually gaining in strength. "Your Honor, gentlemen of the jury, I have very little to say. The woman whose tomb I violated was my mistress. I loved her. I loved her not with a sensual love, not simply from kindness of soul and heart, but as an absolute perfect love with mad passion. Listen to what I have to say. When I first met her, I felt a strange sensation on seeing her. It was not astonishment nor admiration, for it was not what is called love at first sight, but it was a delightful sensation, as though I had been plunged in a tepid bath. Her movements captivated me. Her voice enchanted me. It gave me infinite pleasure to watch everything about her. It also seemed to me that I had known her for a long time, that I had seen her before. She seemed to have some of my spirit within her. She seemed to me like an answer to an appeal from my soul, to this vague and continuous appeal which forces us toward hope with a capital H throughout the whole course of our lives. When I became a little better acquainted with her, the mere thought of seeing her again filled me with a deep and exquisite agitation. The thought of her hand in mine was such a joy to me that I had never imagined the like before. Her smile made my eyes shine with joy and made me feel like running about, dancing, rolling on the ground. Then she became my mistress. She was more than that to me. She was my life itself. I hoped for nothing more on earth. I wished for nothing more. I longed for nothing more. Well, one evening, as we were taking a rather long walk by the bank of the stream, we were caught by the rain. She felt cold. The next day, she had inflammation of the lungs. 8 days later, she died. During those dying hours, astonishment and fear prevented me from understanding or thinking. When she was dead, I was so stunned by brutal despair that I was unable to think. I wept. During all the horrible phases of my internment, my wild, excessive grief was the sorrow of a man beside himself, alienated, beside himself, a sort of sensual, physical grief. Then, when she was gone, she was put under the ground. My mind suddenly became clear, and I passed through a train of mental suffering so terrible that even the love she had given me was dear at such a price. Then I was seized with an obsession. I shall never see her again. After reflecting on that for a whole day, that can madden you. Think of it. A being is there, one whom you adore, a unique being, for in the whole wide world there is no one who resembles her. This being has given herself to you. With you, she creates this mysterious union called love. Her glance seems to you vaster than space, more charming than the world. Her bright glance, full of tender smiles. This being loves you. When she speaks to you, her voice overwhelms you with happiness. And suddenly, she disappears. Think of it. She disappears not only from your sight, but from everyone's. She's dead. Do you understand what that word means? Never, never, never more, nowhere will this being exist. Those eyes will never see again. Never will this voice, never will any voice like this among human voices pronounce one word in the same way that she pronounced it. There will never be another face born like hers. Never. Never. The cast of statues is kept. The stamp that reproduces objects with the same outlines and the same colors, that is preserved. But this body and this face will never be seen again on this earth. And still, there will be born thousands of beings, millions, thousands of millions, and even more. And among all these women, there will never be found anyone like her. Can that be possible? It makes one mad to think of it. She lived 23 years, no more. And she has disappeared. Forever. Forever. She thought, she smiled. She loved me. Now there is nothing more. The flies which die in the autumn are as just as much importance as we in creation. Nothing more. And I thought how her body, her fresh, warm body, so soft, so white, so beautiful, was rotting away in the depths of a box under the ground. And her soul, her mind, her love, where were they? Never to see her again, never again. My mind was haunted by the thought of that decomposing body, which I, however, might still recognize. I set out with a shovel, a lantern, and a hammer. I climbed over the cemetery wall. I found the hole where her grave was. It had not yet been entirely filled up. I uncovered the coffin and raised one of the planks. An awful odor, the abominable breath of putrefaction, arose in my face. Oh, her bed, remembering, perfumed with iris. However, I opened the coffin and thrust in my lighted lantern and saw her. Her face was blue, swollen, horrible. Black liquid had flowed from her mouth. It was she. I was seized with horror, but I put out my arm and caught her hair to pull this monstrous face towards me. It was at that moment I was arrested. All night I carried with me, as one retains the perfume of a woman after a sexual embrace, the filthy smell of this putrefaction, the odor of my beloved. Do what you like with me. A strange silence seemed to hang over the hall. People appeared to be waiting, awaiting something more. The jury withdrew to deliberate. When they returned after a few minutes, the accused did not seem to have any fears, nor even any thoughts. In the traditional formula, the judge informed him that his peers had found him not guilty. He did not make a movement, but the public applauded. That is The Tomb by Guy de Maupassant. As I mentioned on Wednesday, in honor of F. Paul Wilson, one of his most famous books, The Tomb, connected with the keep and conspiracies and a lot of other stuff. That is Volume 3, Guy de Maupassant, the collected novels and stories of Guy de Maupassant. It is incredibly valuable to be able to read and take time away from electronics and sit and read someplace. And I have been very, very ill, as you know. And the energy to read something on my own when I'm alone, sometimes it's not there. But when I'm here in front of you and I tell myself I'm going to read a story, I read it. And I'm really happy I got to read that to you. Now, I'm going to check out something here real quick. I'm going to leave my glasses on so I look also bespectacled. So you might see the reflection up here. But I'm going to go back into my history over at YouTube. And I want to see how long this Horror Babble video is. Because Horror Babble is just one of the best channels out there. And I want to recommend Horror Babble to you. So It is just such a great channel. And the Guide de Maupassant, multiple stories in one, is available over at the Horror Babble channel. And it's a few years old. It's already got 40,000 views. So let me show you, and I just want to see how long the first story is. Because, wow. Okay. And I want to go over here. So Diary of a Madman, like Ozzy Osbourne, is 13 minutes long. So I will play for you Diary of a Madman from Horror Babble. And hopefully he doesn't mind.
The station has been waiting.
Oh, I hate these things. They're so stupid. These game commercials that are done with AI. So dumb. And I'm going to play for you the story that this is pretty brutal. And it is Diary of a Madman by Guy de Maupassant. And I don't know when it was released. I'll look that up. But this is Horror Babble. Highly recommended. And here is this one.
The Diary of a Madman. He was dead, the head of a high tribunal, the upright magistrate whose irreproachable life was a proverb in all the courts of France. Advocates, young counsellors, judges had greeted him at sight of his large, thin, pale face lighted up by two sparkling, deep-set eyes, bowing low in token of respect. He had passed his life in pursuing crime and in protecting the weak. Swindlers and murderers had no more redoubtable enemy, for he seemed to read the most secret thoughts of their minds. He was dead now, at the age of 82, honored by the homage and followed by the regrets of a whole people. Soldiers in red trousers had escorted him to the tomb, and men in white cravats had spoken words and shed tears that seemed to be sincere beside his grave. But here is the strange paper found by the dismayed notary in the desk where he had kept the records of great criminals. It was entitled, Why? 20th of June, 1851. I have just left court. I have condemned Blondel to death. Oh, why did this man kill his 5 children? Frequently one meets with people to whom the destruction of life is a pleasure. Yes, it should be a pleasure, the greatest of all, perhaps. For is not killing the next thing to creating? To make and to destroy? These two words contain the history of the universe, all the history of worlds, all that is, all. Why is it not intoxicating to kill? 25th of June. To think that a being is there who lives, who walks, who runs. A being? What is a being? That animated thing that bears in it the principle of motion and a will ruling that motion. It is attached to nothing, this thing. Its feet do not belong to the ground. It is a grain of life that moves on the earth, and this grain of life, coming I know not whence, one can destroy at one's will. Then nothing more. It perishes. It is finished. 26th of June. Why then is it a crime to kill? Yes, why? On the contrary, it is the law of nature. The mission of every being is to kill. He kills to live, and he kills to kill. The beast kills without ceasing, all day, every instant of his existence. Man kills without ceasing, to nourish himself. But since he needs, besides, to kill for pleasure, he has invented hunting. The child kills the insects he finds, the little birds, all the little animals that come in his way. But this does not suffice for the irresistible need to massacre that is in us. It is not enough to kill beasts. We must kill man too. Long ago, this need was satisfied by human sacrifices. Now the requirements of social life have made murder a crime. We condemn and punish the assassin, but as we cannot live without yielding to this natural and imperious instinct of death, we relieve ourselves from time to time by wars. Then a whole nation slaughters another nation. It is a feast of blood, a feast that maddens armies and that intoxicates civilians, women and children, who read by lamplight at night the feverish story of massacre. One might suppose that those destined to accomplish these butcheries of men would be despised. No, they are loaded with honors. They are clad in gold and in resplendent garments. They wear plumes on their heads and ornaments on their breasts, and they are given crosses, rewards, titles of every kind. They are proud, respected, loved by women, cheered by the crowd, solely because their mission is to shed human blood. They drag through the streets their instruments of death, that the passer-by, clad in black, looks on with envy. For to kill is the great law set by nature in the heart of existence. There is nothing more beautiful and honorable than killing. 30th of June. To kill is the law, because nature loves eternal youth. She seems to cry in all her unconscious acts, "Quick, quick, quick!" The more she destroys, the more she renews herself. 2nd of July. A human being. What is a human being? Through thought, it is a reflection of all that is. Through memory and science, it is an abridged edition of the universe whose history it represents, a mirror of things and of nations. Each human being becomes a microcosm in the macrocosm. 3rd of July. It must be a pleasure, unique and full of zest, to kill, to have there before one the living, thinking being, to make there in a little hole nothing but a little hole, to see that red thing flow which is the blood, which makes life, and to have before one only a heap of limp flesh, cold, inert, void of thought. 5th of August. I, who have passed my life in judging, condemning, killing by the spoken word, killing by the guillotine those who had killed by the knife. I, if I should do as all the assassins have done whom I have smitten, I, who would know it? 10th of August. Who would ever know? Who would ever suspect me? Me. Especially if I should choose a being I had no interest in doing away with. 15th of August. The temptation has come to me. It pervades my whole being. My hands tremble with the desire to kill. 22nd of August. I could resist no longer. I killed a little creature as an experiment. For a beginning. Jean, my servant, had a goldfinch in a cage hung in the office window. I sent him on an errand, and I took the little bird in my hand where I felt its heartbeat. It was warm. I went up to my room. From time to time I squeezed it tighter. Its heart beat faster. This was atrocious and delicious. I was near choking it, but I could not see the blood. Then I took scissors, short nail scissors, and I cut its throat with 3 slits, quite gently. It opened its bill. It struggled to escape me, but I held it. Oh, I held it. I could have held a mad dog, and I saw the blood trickle. And then I did as assassins do, real ones. I washed the scissors. I washed my hands. I sprinkled water and took the body, the corpse, to the garden to hide it. I buried it under a strawberry plant. It will never be found. Every day I shall eat a strawberry from that plant. how one can enjoy life when one knows how. My servant cried. He thought his bird flown. How could he suspect me? Ha ha! 25th of August. I must kill a man. I must. 30th of August. It is done. But what a little thing. I had gone for a walk in the forest of Verne. I was thinking of nothing, literally nothing. A child was in the road, a little child eating a slice of bread and butter. He stops to see me pass and says, "Good day, Mr. President." And the thought enters my head, shall I kill him? I answer, "You are alone, my boy?" "Yes, sir." "All alone in the wood?" "Yes, sir." The wish to kill him intoxicated me like wine. I approached him quite softly, persuaded that he was going to run away. And suddenly, I seized him by the throat. He looked at me with terror in his eyes. Such eyes! He held my wrists in his little hands, and his body writhed like a feather over the fire. Then he moved no more. I threw the body in the ditch, and some weeds on top of it. I returned home and dined well. What a little thing it was! In the evening I was very gay, light, rejuvenated. I passed the evening at the prefect's. They found me witty, but I have not seen blood. I am tranquil. 31st of August. The body has been discovered. They're hunting for the assassin. 1st of September. 2 tramps have been arrested. Proofs are lacking. 2nd of September. The parents have been to see me. They wept. 6th of October. Nothing has been discovered. Some strolling vagabond must have done the deed. If I had seen the blood flow, it seems to me I should be tranquil now. The desire to kill is in my blood. It is like the passion of youth at 20. 20th of October. Yet another. I was walking by the river after breakfast, and I saw, under a willow, a fisherman asleep. It was noon. A spade was standing in a potato field nearby, as if expressly for me. I took it. I returned. I raised it like a club, and with one blow of the edge I cleft the fisherman's head. Oh, he bled, this one. Rose-colored blood. It flowed into the water, quite gently, and I went away with a grave step. If I had been seen, I should have made an excellent assassin. 25th of October. The affair of the fisherman makes a great stir. His nephew, who fished with him, is charged with the murder. 26th of October. The examining magistrate affirms that the nephew is guilty. Everybody in town believes it. 27th of October. The nephew makes a very poor witness. He had gone to the village to buy bread and cheese, he declared. He swore that his uncle had been killed in his absence. Who would believe him? 28th of October. The nephew has all but confessed. They have badgered him so. Justice. 15th of November. There are overwhelming proofs against the nephew, who was his uncle's heir. I shall preside at the sessions. 25th of January. To death. To death. To death. I have had him condemned to death. The Advocate General spoke like an angel. Oh, yet another. I shall go to see him executed. 10th of March. It is done. They guillotined him this morning. He died very well, very well. That gave me pleasure. How fine it is to see a man's head cut off. Now I shall wait. I can wait. It would take such a little thing to let myself be caught. The manuscript contained yet other pages, but without relating any new crime. Alienist physicians to whom the awful story has been submitted declare that there are in the world many undiscovered madmen, as adroit and as much to be feared as this monstrous lunatic.
Geico handles the entire home insurance.
Little something there for the Geico. Great stuff. Horror Babble is a great channel. And by the way, they've got items where you can, that's Ian Gordon doing the narration, by the way. They've got items that you can buy from the channel and things like that. And Jennifer Gill does the music production for Ian. And I just want to make sure we've got all that covered. The commercial, usually the commercials are placed right after each segment here. So,
A ghost.
yeah. Okay. And A Ghost is great too. So that's Guy de Maupassant with the story, The Diary of a Madman. Now, I want to check to see when that was published. And I think you might find that interesting. And I'll see if I can find that in the collections, the overall library that I've got. I should have all of his stuff, but I'll put in Guy de Maupassant. And let me see. Diary of a Madman. Publication date. All right, let's see what 1885. Diary of a Madman by Guy de Maupassant was first published in 1885 in the newspaper La Gauloise on September 2nd, 1885. A longer version was published in Gil Blas in October 1886, and a different version involving the character La Horla was published in 1887. Now, La Horla is a very famous story. So it's interesting that the Horla, which is his most famous story, is actually derivative of this. I didn't know that. That's interesting. If they've got it right there. Wow. Guy de Maupassant, very interesting person. Wow. And you could hear in that he mentions the alienist. And as I've mentioned before, and I'll show you, if you go over to Fantastic Fiction and you put in Caleb Carr's name, Caleb Carr, historian, great writer. Here we go, Caleb Carr. You'll see his first big one was The Alienist. Right there. Now, the cover of The Alienist originally didn't have this on it. This is based on the TV series that they made. It looked like this. This was the original cover. So very spooky, very Victorian-esque, but it happens in New York. And yeah, published in 1994. And you'll see here that says, when The Alienist was first published in 1994, it was a major phenomenon, spending 6 months in the New York Times bestseller list, receiving critical acclaim and selling millions of copies. And it is a big book. He's also written a Sherlock Holmes pastiche, a couple, I think, now. And this happens in 1896, similar era over in New York. And The Alienist is the term that they use for the psychiatric, the psychologist, the psychiatrist, before the term psychiatrist existed. Because when they said that people were mad or insane, they were alienated from themselves, which he actually has in that story that I read, The Tomb. So there you go. That era. And I was just going on it instinctively, knowing that Guy de Maupassant seemed to be more interested in human-on-human aggression, violence, and the fears that that can inspire. I just happened to mention, well, you know, at that time, the psychiatric profession was coming up. So they were getting a lot away from, in many cases, even as the spiritualism stuff was rising, there was a branch of materialists out there who were looking at human behavior as merely human behavior, a bunch of material, and it's animated in a certain way. the question of morality and ethics and interpersonal social relationships, much more based on the sort of Darwinian concept of the survival of the species rather than any God-given natural rights and so on and so forth. It eventually leads to a cul-de-sac. And I'm not saying that Guy de Maupassant was of that, but of the era, yes. And so you can see how he incorporated some of that and some of the stuff he learned because of warfare into his stories, and the brutality of people against other people, and how incomprehensible it is to understand that. And that's what that story, Diary of a Madman, and it's brutal. I wondered, when I was listening to it, I wondered if I should play it, especially with the scene about the bird, because that I found to be extremely disturbing. And it got me wondering how a writer could write something like that, and whether or not the writer himself might have, psychological problems or whatever. But I think, writers are good enough that they can do pretty amazing things without thinking and, embracing the similar sorts of mind of the madman that they're writing about. So I thought that was interesting. And you can look into Caleb Carr as well. The Alienist is a remarkable story. He did a sequel to it, which was about the apprentice to the alienist psychologist. And it happens actually in, rather than 1890s, it's like 1900 something. And it's in New York as well. And the young apprentice has grown up now to be his own person on his own adventure. So pretty good stuff. And Caleb Carr, he's a really interesting dude. He's written, actually, he was probably better known for his nonfiction work for quite a while. He wrote a lot about animals. He's got a really neat fantasy story that you might be interested in. It's a novel, The Legend of Broken. And I'm not going to say anything about it, but look it up and beware, spoilers and stuff like that. But let me head on over and say hi to everybody before we go. It's about 9 o'clock on a Friday night. And Harry, wow. Oh, man. Okay, everybody, up on the screen, this is just, what a nice thing. Wow, you made my day. You made my week, Harry. Oh, thank you so much, man. That's so essential and so timely. Perfect. A $50 contribution to the Liberty Conspiracy. He says, missed the end of the month. Man, thank you, Harry. I hope I'm doing you right. And I hope that I can start doing that midday show and give you some valuable interviews. And if you ever want to hop on the show, that would be terrific to talk to you about whatever. Stories, nonfiction, history, family, things that you remember from your childhood, anything, your favorite animal, anything you want. You guys, let's do it. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So in the meantime, there's that freeze frame of Richard Butler from the Dumbwaiters video. And again, that song, once described by a reviewer, Dumbwaiters by the Psychedelic Furs, as this song defies description by the English language. And it does. That is the only way that it can be properly defined, as impossible to define. I like that. Harry, you rock. Birdhouse, you rock. Guys, you're great. Don't forget, everybody, tomorrow there's America Unplugged, noontime. There is, of course, Knights of the Storm at 2 o'clock. Karen Carpenter's show now on Tuesdays at 8:30. That rocks. Don't forget Ashley's show. That is great on Thursdays. And I hope everybody has an absolutely fantastic night. I was going to try to work on the finish of Transmitter, the story over in England in the 1970s, and the supposedly haunted house of the warden of this asylum. I didn't get to work on it today because I was just so busy trying to get video stuff rendered and things like that. So I'll try to do that tomorrow. And I hope everybody has a terrific night. And X is in the house. We got Laurel Canyon conversations and weird happenings in the canyon, right? That's some strange stuff. Don't ask about Arthur C. Clarke. There are certain writers now, I just can't read their stuff, whether it's Anne Perry because of her experience as a teenager, being, caught plotting and carrying out the murder of she and her friend. There was a movie made about that. in New Zealand or Australia when they were kids. She went to prison for a number of years. She got out, and she's lived her life peacefully ever since then and writes murder mysteries. But I don't know. It's a little weird. I can't exactly like dive into the stories there. I might try sometime, but and there are other writers like Arthur C. Clarke. You look at some of his background, you're sort of like, I don't think so. And there's a woman, is it Marion Zimmer Bradley? I don't want to badmouth anybody. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. We'll talk about that sort of stuff another time. That's not fun stuff. That's not positive. So let's leave it positive. Guy de Maupassant. Check them out. Good stuff. And I have a feeling that Ambrose Bierce was influenced a lot by Guy de Maupassant. And I will leave you with the Outer Limits outro and say goodnight for now on this Friday night of Fiction Friday. And next week we'll have much more of G-Man fiction for you and opening things up to your ideas for good stories to read. And we'll read some Edgar Allan Poe as well. It'll be great. Have a great night. God bless.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to the Outer Limits.